Hello everybody, it's Wayne. I'm just going to show you now how to create a new Excel workbook. So once you've signed into Office, then just find Excel, go to Excel and select it, click on it, and then select New Blank Workbook. So this is the exercise that you're actually going to be doing. It's like an attendance roll, so course attendances. And you can see the columns and rows. So there's date fields here. These values here are built by using a count if formula, so I'll go through that in a minute, but all the rest you can type in except for that column, and you can type in the first date there at the top, but we're going to use autofill to fill in the other dates. So if I am typing it in, you may have to widen your columns a little bit. So I'm just going to go over, these are the things that you already know, but to widen columns you go into this header area here and get on that boundary line in between the columns and click and drag to make the columns bigger. And if you want to do more than one column at a time, you go into the header, click and drag to select all the columns, and then you can make them bigger or smaller. We make it a bit bigger. Okay, so this is how I want you to, this is everything I want you to type into your spreadsheet. Course attendances in cell A1. All of this row goes in cell B1. So as you can see, I've selected cell B1, and in the formula bar here, that's everything that's typed in there. So these aren't typed in different cells, they're all in cell B1. Then you've got the date, the first date here, so type in all of that, and also that as well. Okay, so that's everything you need to type in. Okay, so first thing that we're going to do once you've typed it in is we're going to autofill the dates across here. So I've typed in my first date, which is the 7th of the 8th 2023. Then once I've selected the cell, I go down to the bottom right corner and I move on to that little square there and get that, and then once I've got that thick cross, I click, hold down and drag across to autofill the dates, and as you can see it's automatically counted up one day each time. Okay, so if you look at the logic of this table, it's an attendance about these people who has attended on a certain day or who was present. So the P's represent who was present in that course on those days. Okay, so over here I'm going to put in a formula that is what we call a count if formula. So what I'm going to do is in that range of cells for that week, I want it to count up how many times P appears. So we're going to count if in that range it comes up with a P, and you can see quite easily anyway that there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that person, Sarah Rai, attended 4 times that week. Okay, so this is how we do it. Alright, so select where you want your answer to be. Now in your Home tab, you've got the Formulas button, or what they call the Functions button. So I click the little arrow next to the Functions button, and the count if formula isn't here, so I've got to go to More Functions. So here I am with a list of different types of formulas or functions. Now here is count if. So I'm just going to click on count if, and then OK. Okay, so what's it asking us for? Count if the range first. So in the brackets, I've got to have the range, which is the cells that I want to count. And then I've got to put in the criteria, which is in quote marks, it'll be the letter P. It has to be in quote marks because it's text. So we leave that the same. Now the first thing we do is we highlight the range. So the range is that. Now exactly as in the example just below the cell, it says put a comma in, and I'll put a space after the comma, and then I want it to recognize, or the criteria to be the letter P. So because it's a letter, I have to put a double quote mark in, and then capital P, and then end quote mark. Okay, and after that, I haven't finished yet, I've got to close the bracket as it says in the example. So I'll close the bracket, and once I've done that and I've put in my formula, I just press enter. And it's counted for. Now, we don't have to do the other formulas because we can autofill that formula down. So if I move that down a bit, if I move on to the autofill and click and drag down, it should automatically do the other formulas. So if I look at the formula here, it's a different range of cells, which is that range. If I look at this formula here, it's now B5 to F5, B6 to F6, etc., etc. So it's actually done the ranges that I want. Now, just having a look back at our example, the next thing we're going to do is do the font colors and the maybe the font size, because that's a little bit bigger text, and the background colors, which is of course called our shading. So that's like a gold, that's like a lighter gold, and that's like a yellow for the shading. So if we go back to our example that we're doing, so I'm going to highlight that row, and then in my Home tab I go to the shading, or what they call fill color, and then I select the gold. Now I'm also going to, while I've got it selected, change the font color to white. Okay, so, and I should have done that one too, so I'll just quickly do that one, and font color white. Now the next one here is a different color, so it's a little bit lighter color gold, which is probably that one, and I think the font color was still white, and I think it was bold as well, and I think this was all bold. Okay, so down here, these ones, I'll select all of those cells. Don't worry that the first one doesn't look like it's selected, it actually is. and I'm going to pick a fill color, a lighter yellow, maybe that one. Okay, so it's starting to look like our example now. If we look back at our example, if you look at the first row, we actually have in cell 1, there's actually 2 lines, and that's called wrap text. So we need to make sure we've wrapped text and in A1 and in B1, but you can see that B1 is quite a big cell. I've actually merged all the B, C, D, E, F, G cells together. So I'm going to show you how to do those things, and there's actually a wrap text down here where it says total present as well. So we'll fix that up in a minute. Okay, so just go to our example, and I will select all of those because I pretty much want all of those to be wrapped. And again, in my home tab, I go to this button here, which is the wrap text button, and I click on wrap text. Now it's a little bit bigger than what what I had anticipated. I've still got to merge all those cells together. So I select all those cells, and again in my home tab I go to merge and center. Okay, so it's merged all those cells together, but in my example this text is actually left aligned. So I've got to, in my home tab again, go to the alignment buttons here and make it left aligned. Now it made the row quite big, so again, if I want to resize that row, I will go over to the boundary line in between the 2 rows over here, and I'll click and drag it up to make it smaller. Now because I've wrapped text, if I now make that column a little bit narrower, the word attendances will wrap to the second line. So watch this. If I make it so it can't fit, it's actually put it on the second line. So now I'm just going to increase the font size of that to sort of match my example. So I will use increase font size just so I can do it incrementally. So that looks good, but it's now I have to make the row a little bit bigger. So I'll do that. Okay, so it's starting. If we look back at our example, the other thing is that all of this information is up the top of that cell. So, and in the one we've just done, it's at the bottom. So I'm just going to select that cell, that big merged cell, and I'm going to put it up the top. Okay, that's the top, the vertical alignment buttons, that's top. Okay, so here, if we look back at our example, all of our columns are actually smaller than the ones in the one we've just been constructing. So I'll go back and I'll select the whole worksheet. So if you click up here in that square in the corner to select the whole worksheet, and I'll just resize one of the columns. Okay, that looks a little bit better, but then it did that column as well, so I probably just go back and resize that column a little bit to make sure that it looks like our example. Okay, now also here I might resize that so the present goes to the so I just resize that row so that total present appears like that, and then all of these I think are center aligned in the cell. So I'll select all of those ones and I will center align them in the cell. So if we go back to our example, yeah, it's starting to look like our example now. So what we did is we wrapped text in all of those cells and then we merged B through to G, one there, and we resized the columns to force the word onto the next line. Okay, so in our example, the row heights of these ones in the lighter yellow, they're actually a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to go back here and I'm going to go into the header area and then click and drag to select those rows, and then I'm just going to adjust one of the rows, and all, because I've selected them all, then they all change. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now the last thing to do is to insert your signature. So we'll just click over here somewhere after you've typed your name, date and the course code, and then we're going to insert a picture and then choose file. Look for my signature or my initials. There we go. They'll probably come in pretty big, and then click on insert. Yeah, it comes in really big. So I'll just drag it up, resize it, drag it up. Okay, there we go. Now, next thing to do is share it with me. So again, what you do is click on share. You put my email address in, so you should probably know that by now, but let me know if you don't. And put in a brief message and then share it with me. Thanks for watching.